Hello everyone. It is Sunday, June 20th, and this is episode 18 of Odds Are, your S&P 500 weekly market forecast. All right, this one's going to be a little shorter than usual. The miracles of technology, the charting software that I'm using is undergoing an update, and so there are some features that I will not be able to provide on this episode, specifically the relative view, but everything else stays the same. So we're going to go right into the moving averages. And you can see that the moving averages have flipped on the short term. We are now in neutral territory, and that's because last week we did end up on a very, very low note. In fact, we closed near the lows of the week, and we will actually get into how the forecast from last week was spot on. Not to toot my own horn, but this could not have played any more like what we were expecting. Last week, if you remember, we said that there was a high probability, in fact, 99.99%, that we were going to have a breach of the breach points, and we did. We also said that there was a high probability because 5 out of the only 8 times that this setup has occurred in the last 21 years, we've had a double breach. And this week that passed, we did have a double breach. We breached to the top side, and then we breached to the downside. So we will be covering that here in just a sec. But getting back to the moving averages, that's basically why we flip now to the neutral reading and still bullish on all other time frames. All right, let's take a look at the breach points for this coming week. We have a lower breach point of 40.99, so just a hair below 4100. And we have a upper breach point of 42.25. So pretty wide range there, and that's where we're expecting to be a breach. We have an 81.26% chance that we will have a breach of one of those two breach points. Let's add in now the expected settlement range and take a look at this. We now have an offset. We now have the expected settlement range inside of the upper breach point. So looking like we're going to close under that 42.13, and a lower breach point that's above the expected settlement range of 40.27, the lower settlement, right? So very likely that we will see a breach of one of those 2 points, but then the question is, which one makes most sense? Now, looking at the setup, it begs to reason that we could easily breach the 40.99 breach point and still close within the expected settlement range of 40.27 to 42.13. The market doesn't always, play according to what we expect it to do, but that's why the show is called Odds Are, right? We're looking at what are the odds and what is the most likely outcome in the week to come. So looking at this setup, I'm saying that if we breach a point, it's going to be the 40.99 with the downward momentum that we have going into the end of the week, and that we will still settle within the 40.27 to 42.13 range. Now, let's make this a little bit more interesting. Check out where the Parabolic SAR is now. That Parabolic SAR is at 40.92. That is critical, because if we do breach below the 40.99 level, and if we do close above the 40.27 level, right? But we could very easily close below the 40.92. And we all know that's what we've kind of been watching for the last, 6, 7, 8 weeks at least since we made the modifications to the Parabolic SAR. And this is a very, plausible scenario now. We're looking at a setup where it could very easily close within the expected settlement range. It could still breach one of the expected breach points and close below the Parabolic SAR. So let's keep an eye out for that one. But it's finally within the range, right? It's finally within that expected settlement range, and that's what we've been waiting for. All right. Let's go now into the section that is slightly modified called If You Didn't See That One Coming. So last week we said, hey, we have a high probability that we're going to breach one of those 2 breach points. And like I said, the market did not disappoint. We had an upper breach point of 42.55 and the market just went up to 42.67 and then pulled back down. We pulled back down with strength. That was the other key thing that we mentioned, was that in the past, when we've had this 2 weeks in a row with no breach of the breach points, not only did we have pretty much a guaranteed breach of one of the breach points, but that we would do so with strength. And it was also very likely that we would have a double breach. So like I said, we breached to the top side, and then we breached down to the lower breach point, which was set at 42.11, and we went all the way down to 41.41. So we definitely breached both, obviously to the downside with more strength. But this just kind of brings me, to the quote of the week, which reminds us that we need to take advantage when these things happen, right? It's not every week that we have a setup like this where the odds are so much in our favor that we would be almost foolish not to attempt to take advantage of it. Now, we can't always take advantage of it, but if you can, that is what the wise trader or investor would do. But don't take my word for it. Listen to Mr. Warren Buffett, who says, opportunities come infrequently. When it rains gold, put out the buckets, not the thimble. So last week was definitely the time to break out the buckets because we had a 99.99% chance of something happening, and it was highly likely that we could have that double breach there. I know I definitely was able to capitalize on some of that. Hope you guys were able to as well. But if not, don't worry. Keep watching the show, and anytime a high probability trade like that comes around, you will definitely hear it here. So with that in mind, keep listening. Watch out for this week. We've got a lot of downward momentum heading into it. We could very easily see an ugly week ahead. Or do we bounce? Guess you'll have to find out, and we'll see you back here next week.